AOP Tech is pleased to present the TerraNova Series. In this episode, Item Summary, Individual Skill Analysis, presented by Sister Edward William Quinn, Assistant Superintendent for the Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment.
Take them through this. On the home page, you see an item that's called Item Summary. The item summary takes you step by step, question by question, through the test. Now we're going to go into that 6th grade here. If I click continue, this is a very large report, and sometimes if you're waiting to download it, it does take a few minutes depending upon your system and your capability. But this takes you step by step through every question in the test. By default, it comes up with the reading first. And again, I would go to the subtests if I wanted to look at the math questions or language, social studies, science. Let's pick on science right now as a demonstration example. So if I pick on science and click submit, if I am taking a look at my scores for science, and I'm taking a look at it question by question. First of all, over here, it gives you a list, question by question, of what skills were being covered. Here we have the skill of data interpretation. Now, every school has a guidebook for the TerraNova, and it tells you what is meant by each skill at each level. So if you were on level 16, which this is, if I went in that guidebook and I looked for a definition of data interpretation in the guidebook, it would tell me what it meant at that level, but also give me an example of a question that might address data interpretation at the level. If I look at this particular class, 100% of the students answered that question correctly. So data interpretation is a strong skill for that class. If I move over here, it tells me that the correct answer was letter D or J. These are the multiple choice questions, okay? But I'm looking down here, and an area, methods and design, only 42% of the students got it correct. And if I were to look back at the question, I see that the outliers here, there were 37% that answered incorrectly. I might want to take a look and see, well, why? Here's how I'm looking at the test and see, how did the students interpret the question and what was it they were looking at? Again, I look down, here's another question on methods and design, and only 11% of the students got it correct. So right away, this is telling me that this is an area that I need to go back in and look at. Methods and designs in 2 different subtests the students did not do well in. So I'm going to interpret that in a way that I need to go back and take a look at it. Down here, I came across some questions, data interpretation and methods and design. And if I'm looking at that, I see that it's telling me how many students got, or what percentage of students. These are the constructive response questions. And they had to interpret and write a written response to those questions. When I take a look at that, it's important for you as teachers to realize how thoroughly these are graded. The constructive response questions are done one at a time. Only one person marks one question. There's one, when they send these to the marking center, there is one person designated to answer one question and only one question, so that in that way the tests can be objectively scored. When they're finished with answering question 1, it moves to another person to answer question 2. I was curious about that myself, and I investigated it to find out how they could be objective with that. If you notice over here, it also tells you how many students did not respond to a particular question. So you have a better sense of who did answer, who didn't answer. It also tells you how many earned no points, 1 point, and so forth. Okay. So you have, again, under methods and designs, which is the constructive response, they did not do well on method and design in the multiple choice. And again, they only scored 1 or 0 points. 42% scored no points. So again, that's telling me right away that's an area that I need to look in. I need to get out that TerraNova teacher's guide, look what's meant by methods and design at that level, and refocus for this year's class, refocus my instruction to make sure that the students who I'm teaching now have a better understanding of that. If I'm looking at the class I currently have and they did poorly, again, I need to refocus my instruction to make sure that they have those skills before they leave me at the end of the school year. I'm identifying right away the skills that they're very good in and the skills that they're not so good in, just by taking a look at that. And again, by going up here to the subtests, I can change what content area that I'm looking at. I can take a look at objectives if I want to take just looking at science inquiry. I can just leave that clicked on and submit, and it will narrow it down to questions that were related just to science inquiry. So I can narrow it down so I'm not looking at the whole big picture all at once. Okay. I can tell it what stats I want it to do. If I don't want to look at all of these stats, I can interpret by using the tabs at the top of the page. Again, that's just one small part of the data that you can get, but I think that that's important data because, again, it helps you as a teacher to narrow down on the skills that your students had deficiencies in. Still time between the time you get the scores and the end of the school year to refocus on some of the scores that they did not do well in.
So AOP Tech would like to thank you for watching this video. We hope it has been helpful and informative. If you'd like to contact Sister Edward, her contact information is above. And we certainly recommend that you subscribe to AOP Tech right over there. And if you'd like to watch the next video in the series, you can find it right over there. Thank you so very much. Have a great day.